All right, my name is Craig Scott. I'm the founder and CEO of Fuuz, the manufacturing platform. I am here on our podcast called The Manufacturing Matrix, and today I am going to be discussing the hot topic of build versus buy. So there's been a lot of information floating around recently. There's been a lot of different ideas and opinions within the manufacturing space, in particular the MES space, about whether it's better to build your MES or buy your MES. So rather than focus on whether it's better to build versus buy, we're going to kind of take a different approach to this topic and say there really is no buy option, right? And I'll break this down for you a little bit between the paradigm that we see when we're speaking with potential clients. On one hand, we work with a lot of small, mid-sized manufacturers. So their preference oftentimes is to find something that is commercially available. I'll use the term off the shelf or pre-built, that offers them a quick time to value. So they'll go through a number of demos with various different software vendors, providers. They'll have maybe a demo script, maybe, show me some various examples of some things that you guys can do. We're a discrete manufacturer. We're interested in traceability. The boss wants to see some OEE reports, right? So those things can all come across and seem, just fine in a software demo. On the flip side, when we're working with enterprise, right? So some of our global customers that have multiple sites, maybe you're not global, but you have multiple sites, you're maybe north of $100 million in revenue, then it's a slightly different take on their perspective when they're out looking for manufacturing software. Oftentimes, these companies are already experienced in the concept of buying because they've done that before. And ultimately, they have abandoned, or maybe not even abandoned, those software applications that they've purchased, but those software applications have just become a piece of the larger puzzle. And they've taken and built some of their own things in and or around those applications. They've integrated those applications with other applications to fill gaps, plug holes, however you want to refer to that. They have maybe done some extending of those applications where they've bolted on things like Kepware, maybe to connect to their machines or devices. They've bolted on things like, database, data lake, Snowflake, time series to collect and capture some of that data. That's still considered building. And that's why the debate in the industry right now largely leans towards the perspective that if you're a manufacturer, you will build your MES. Whether you start with something that's off the shelf or out of the box, or you start with something that's more of a platform, everyone ends up in the same place. So unless your business really doesn't have any growth projection to it, you have one very specific challenge that you're trying to solve, and maybe there is that perfect solution for you off the shelf that will do everything your business needs it to do. You would be the exception to the rule. Most manufacturers start off by evaluating software products, looking for it to solve a specific problem. And I think that is where largely the vast majority of software buyers tend to get it wrong. They'll focus on the wrong set of core features and functions rather than focusing on the software's flexibility and extensibility, which is key for manufacturing software applications. So, for example, with the Fuuz platform, we have built it out as a low-code, no-code platform technology that's SaaS. It's multi-tenant. We'll talk about this in other videos, what that means. We've eliminated a lot of the trials and tribulations that many larger manufacturers have gone through trying to move themselves to the cloud, right? So the manufacturing platform, Fuuz, is already there. We've already taken care of a lot of the heavy lift. So those are things that you don't have to build, as opposed to starting off down this path of a pure build concept where you're buying various different technologies, things like Ignition, SQL servers, your, Kepware, HiByte, Litmus. You're buying all these different things. You're integrating them all together because they all serve very specific purposes. And so each one of them is very good at what they do independently. No one of them is good at doing all of the things collectively that they do. So, the sum, as they say, is greater than its parts. With Fuuz, we've taken a different approach and we've actually bundled all of that capability and functionality into the platform. So I wouldn't say that you're not going to build if you were to purchase Fuuz. What I would say, though, is that you will not have to bolt on. There's no scenario in which a manufacturer should ever have to bolt anything on to Fuuz to accomplish the necessary tasks that they need within their operations. And so Fuuz really becomes that unified space, that unified data layer for the manufacturing operations that sits in between or in the center of all of your other business applications, like your ERP, your TMS, your CMMS, your other SQL servers, your quality systems, and so forth. So back to the build versus buy dilemma. There's some very strong opinions out there by industry experts saying that all manufacturers will build or end up building in the end, which we believe is true. And that's really the thesis behind why we developed the Fuuz platform. And what makes the Fuuz platform different than all of the other solutions or tool sets that are out there is the fact that we've taken a holistic approach and that we want to solve the manufacturer's overarching problem, which is providing them with a single place to manage and maintain all of their manufacturing data and infrastructure, rather than providing just a single point solution that later they will have to bolt things onto. So we've really looked down the road, we've looked down the future to understand where we believe manufacturing and manufacturers need to go with concepts, coming forward like AI and ML. These things become much more practical when you have a manufacturing platform like Fuuz, because now when it comes to doing things like training your AI models, it's trained all based on the data and the relevance and the contextual data that you have already within the Fuuz platform. So you don't need to hook 7 different software applications together, pipe all of that into a data lake, give your AI tool access to that, and then train your models on that. You already have everything you need in the Fuuz platform to make this happen today. And our customers are already doing these things. We actually already have pre-built connectors with AI tools that you can use to plug right into Fuuz and start doing these things right away. So we've minimized the amount of effort that it's going to take a company to essentially build whatever they need to build without being solely dependent on the software vendor in this particular case. So, in our past, when we were consulting, and we still consult, but previously when we were deploying manufacturing ERP solutions in small, mid-sized manufacturers, they were sold on the premise that this ERP system that they were buying had some out-of-the-box manufacturing capabilities, right? Had a dispatch list. It had the ability to create and manage work orders. It had some product data management capabilities, maybe some asset control. It would track downtime, calculate OEE, right? So they thought that this was really a one-stop shop, a holistic solution for their manufacturing business. So they would go down this path of implementing or deploying the software across one or more sites. And then generally what would end up happening 100% of the time is that these manufacturers would end up having to go out and look for other solutions, right? So now when phase 2 comes along and they want to, let's say, integrate with their shop floor controls, right? So they want to capture data from the machines. So now they're starting to look at, well, our ERP system doesn't do that natively. So let's go see what other software is out there that connects to our machines easily, that we can get that data. So they go down that path. And now that they have that data in the SCADA system, well, now we have to store that in a database somewhere because our ERP doesn't have the appropriate data model structure to store this data. So then they put a SQL server in place. So this is the story that unfolds. Unfortunately, for 100% of the manufacturers out there, is the debate is not over whether you will build or not. The debate is whether do you buy point solutions and bolt them together, or do you focus on finding a solution that's more holistic, so that you have one technology to support and maintain for the longevity of your business, right? So finding a platform like Fuuz that is agnostic, that is cloud native, that is multi-tenant, that supports low code, no code. So the citizen developer out there, it supports the full software development lifecycle. So if you want to build your own apps, you want to deploy your own apps, you certainly can. Our partners can do that as well. If you want to integrate with your machinery, you want to run a hybrid solution for your manufacturing operations, you can do that with the Fuuz Gateway. You want to have mobile apps for your shop floor users to be able to scan and move and track inventory. You can do that with Fuuz because we have used the React technology on the front end. So everything is responsive to any type of device, any type of operating system. So all of these things I just mentioned in a typical manufacturing enterprise would probably look at about 5 to 7 different pieces of software that Fuuz is able to do all in and of itself. The benefit there, of course, is that now you have one software platform to worry about learning and training and maintaining and all of that. You have none of the licensing challenges. You have none of the compatibility issues between different software applications. And we've seen that quite frequently where you buy 2 pieces of software vendor says it's not an issue for us to integrate with, company XYZ. We have all of these APIs. It's going to be a breeze. You buy these 2 pieces of software just to realize that just having APIs is not good enough. You need some type of middleware. You need some type of iPaaS solution now to actually move to do the ETL, the extract, transformation, and loading of the data between the 2 systems. So now that's another 3rd piece of software that you weren't planning on owning. So again, these are all of the things that I think manufacturers who are out there seeing and listening to a lot of this information really need to think about is if you buy the MES off the shelf, just realize that eventually that will just become a piece of the puzzle. It may not be at the center of the puzzle. It may not be at the forefront. It might end up being in the background. I can tell you, for example, we've had many of our clients who have purchased ERP systems with manufacturing functionality, all basically in the end to utilize this ERP as nothing more than a database. So ultimately, what they've ended up with is a really expensive SQL server that they could have avoided a lot of time and energy up front had they thought about the project from a different perspective. So what we're hoping is that the general population out there will consider the fact that you will end up building ultimately whatever the solution is going to be for your business. It's just a matter of how you go about building it. And whether it's going to be one tool that gets you there, like Fuuz, or if it's going to be an assemblage of multiple things that get you there over time. When it comes to build versus buy, you also want to consider the different types of applications that are out there and available, whether they're on-prem, in the cloud, if they're multi-tenant SaaS, or if they're just cloud hosted, is all going to make a pretty big difference for you in the long run. So anything that's on-prem actually will integrate pretty well with anything else that's on-prem, but there's going to be some hurdles that you'll have to overcome if you have on-prem software that needs to communicate with cloud-based software, right? So exchanging information behind your firewall can become a little bit tricky. You can expose your business to various security risks. So these are just things that you might want to or ought to consider as you're moving down this path. So we've had a lot of clients come to us and say, can you tell us why Fuuz, and why not, Wonderware? Why not Ignition? Why not, Highbite and Litmus and all these other things that we hear about? Because they're great tools. By themselves, they do a wonderful job at the one thing that they do. But if you're looking for a true platform to build your business around that can enable your business and help you operate at the speed of light without having to worry about what's next. So you'll get to a point with that where you've accomplished said task, right? X, and now you're ready to move on to the next project. You want to tackle the next challenge. That may and oftentimes will result in you going out and purchasing additional software, paying for more licenses, going through more demos, more evaluations. So you're really costing the business quite a bit of valuable time and money, and you're also not delivering as much value to the business through the solution as you could be, or as most of our customers would argue they get with the Fuuz platform. So, again, you can't do everything overnight. You can't address all of your business problems and needs in single phase. Phase one, you have to plan these things out and go through a crawl, walk, run approach with anything you do. But we wanted to shed a little bit of light and put some of our spin on what we think the build versus buy dilemma is, and kind of cut through some of the context, because I feel like some of the comments that are made or some of the information that's being presented does make it sound like it is one or the other, and it's really not. It's really kind of a progression where you start with buy, you ultimately end up in that build process. So thanks for joining on the podcast today. Appreciate it. Hopefully some of this resonated, and if you have any other questions about build versus buy or how the Fuuz platform can help you if you're a manufacturer, please visit our website, fuuz.com.